Oh, what, sorry?
Zoos, right?
Zoos.
I'm
going to
go and get
you and me,
each one of
too.
us, right? We're communities, right?
Yeah. Communities of zoos.
Right?
Yeah.
And we've got about 30 billion cells, if you look at you or me.
Oh, okay.
And about 10 billion, 12 billion are our own cells, right?
Yeah.
But the rest are all micro-organisms,
Right.
bacteria and what have you, that sort of basically were coexisting with a very happy synergy. And we're just saying that's wonderful stuff, you see, and it's, but we never see it that way because we always see that they these are low lives and we're up here in the superior life, but of course we couldn't survive without them.
That's right.
And I think it's just discussing that whole,
it's a
role
lovely
of organisms
level.
in our whole cycles and digestion.
So like remembering that we're like living ecosystems.
Well, we are just like the planet, we're just like no different. And how much of life is then governed by these processes and how we would, completely collapse in no time if they weren't there.
Yeah.
And we're born as synergies or communities of 30 billion cells, of which 10 to 12 billion are our own, our own DNA, but the others have got quite different DNA.
Okay. So more than half have got quite different DNA.
But, of course, if you sterilise yourself, you kill all those others, and then you're in real trouble because, if you basically said, look, I'm going to, if you take lots of antibiotics, for example, you would sort of destroy a lot of them, but then all of a sudden you find you can't digest things and have allergy reactions and all sorts of, medical problems start happening. And you become extremely vulnerable because when an organism does colonise you, you'll come down with it like that. It's dead. But then all the organisms will win because then they'll just take those 10 billion cells that were you and they'll just recycle them, you see. So they always end up winning. It comes right back to the beginnings of life on Earth in terms of, the total Earth, 3.8 billion years ago when organisms first evolved in the oceans, but also 420 million years ago when basically the land was just colonised for the first time. And of course microorganisms were the primary organism, the fungi that colonised then from the oceans onto the land, mineralising soils, solubilising nutrients, but of course taking algae, blue-green algae with them as lichens because they needed the algae to provide the sugars from sunlight to give them the food. And it's really the whole biosphere has grown up through that microbial symbiosis, algae, fungi, and of course then the algae, fungi developed into mosses, ferns, gymnosperms, angiosperms, and in a sense created the whole terrestrial biosphere that we know, basically soil, organic matter, and with that the whole hydrology cycle of the planet, and with the hydrology of the cycle of the planet, our whole climate system.
So tell me a bit more about soils. I have a tomato plant, and one is a hydroponic tomato plant, and the other is one with fungi at its roots. What's the difference?
Okay. Well, look, basically, as we sort of said, fungi colonise the planet to get nutrients, and of course that's the whole thing, whereas sunlight, CO2, water, nitrogen is in the air and is available free. They can only be actually translated into biomass, into plants, through photosynthesis, but to do that you need nutrients, and those nutrients come from our mineral soils, and the only way you can get those nutrients is through their solubilization. And the only way that you can solubilize essential nutrients, phosphorus and others, from soils is through the actual action of microorganisms in that solubilization. So they're intimately primarily responsible then for that solubilization, and thus the whole productivity of the planet. Now, as far as your question about your tomato plants, of course we artificially can intervene and we can say we can solubilize nutrients, for example putting sulfuric acid on rock phosphate to make superphosphate, but that's a completely different concentration, balance and form of nutrients compared to what the fungi naturally would get. Whereas fungi, taking up nutrients from soil, actually solubilise the correct balance, concentration, not just of NPK, 3 nutrients, basically they are taking up 30 different elements from the mineral soil to give us a healthy, nutrient-balanced plant.
Yeah.
Your hydroponic plant is likely to have NPK, and of course the imbalance of nutrients is your health that you're playing dice with.
So it's like a transport passageway.
It's
the
actually
fungi, hyphae, link up with the roots and make them a lot more effective.
In a sense, the fungi are that interface between the inert mineral world, the soil, the physical world, and the biological world. So you could say, yes, both the solubilization, uptake, but most importantly the quality control discriminator to ensure that toxic nutrients are left behind, essential nutrients are taken up, so that the food we eat has got the right balance of nutrient for our healthy futures.
Oh, yeah. So it's like the gatekeeper.
It is exactly that. It is a gatekeeper. It is an intelligent quality control process interfacing the physical world and our biological health.
Okay. Yeah, great. Thanks.
Okay.
Walter.
Is that enough?
Yeah.